This is Asad Hashim. I am with John Esposito, the author of The Future of Islam, who's also with the Georgetown University and is a noted academic and analyst. Mr. Esposito, what do you think the outlook is for institutional change in terms of U.S. policies in the Middle East?
Well, I think that the administration has indicated that it realizes that that needs to be done, and I think it realizes it has to be done both for pragmatic reasons very clearly, national interest, let alone the question of living up to a good deal of what President Obama in Ankara and Cairo pledged, as it were. I think that there are a lot of forces, though, that can remain to be an issue here. One will be the U.S. Congress, and which Mr. Obama has really no strong influence over, especially in light of the last elections. I think also the other thing is that we need a new framework, both within the Arab world with regard to its future, but also with regard to the EU and America, a new framework for our relations. The old framework and the way it got defined, that stability and security depended on supporting authoritarian regimes, has clearly failed. But the question is whether or not one can move quickly to articulate that framework and do that. But then also you need people that have the mindsets to do it. And the fact is, if you have people who have operated with a different mindset for a long time, it can be a real issue, even if they accept something in theory, how they put that into practice. So that, I think, will take both people within the government, but also I think the president will want to bring in alternative, new, diverse voices and listen to those and also perhaps ease out some of the people who really represent the politics of the past.
Right. Secondly, now we've seen that the uprisings in the Arab world were mostly fueled by young people coming out into the streets and really demanding substantive change. Do you think that these same youth activists are going to be given space and roles in the governance?
I think the youth activists will be given space and roles in the governance if the youth activists continue to be active and make those demands. I think if you look at Egypt, that's clearly thus far has been happening. They have remained involved, they have remained making their demands, and indeed there have been some changes that I think are primarily because of the youth activists as well as others. The recent change with regard to the Prime Minister, the appointment of a new youth minister, but it's going to take a lot, especially since the instinct not only of those who are still part of the old regime, whether in Egypt or Tunisia, will be to want to retain as much power as possible, but also even among those well-meaning supporters of change, a fair number of them are used to a politics of the elders, and a fair number of them are elders who in fact, without perhaps realizing what they want to do, will feel that, well, now they're best placed to now step in and actually become the leaders of the institutions. And that has to change.
Finally, how would you describe the current U.S. policy on the unrest in Libya?
I think that the U.S. policy on Libya has been moving in a direction, but it still, as before, got off to a slow start, kind of equivocating. At times, as happened also, I think, with the EU, there's a tendency to we have this gesture of licking your finger, holding it up to see which way the wind is blowing. And again, remember, what is being required now is to move away from the old standards, which would have said whatever happens within a country is their business. It's a sovereign country. And we've been getting mixed messages. I believe that what the president needs to do is to make a statement in which he says, we are very concerned, and he has, and spell out why, and indicate to Mr. Gaddafi that it's time for him to move on, indicate that the U.S. does not and has real problems with what he's doing, but B, he needs to say what the U.S. will do, and I believe that he ought to reflect at least what I seem to see from reports from the region and what people in the region are saying in the country. Minimally, we should be talking about a no-fly zone. But at the same time, you should make it very clear there will be no troops on the ground, there will be no real attempt to intervene and militarily and define the future of what's going to happen, and that he's aware that the no-fly zone does not solve the problem, but that it almost will be done in a way of trying to at least minimize or cut down on the amount of carnage and butchery that's taking place.
Right. Finally, actually, just continuing on something that you mentioned, Silvio Berlusconi, the Italian Prime Minister, yesterday said that the stance taken by the EU and other world leaders in condemning Gaddafi's actions had effectively pushed him into a corner, and that this was creating a situation where it would be less likely for him to be able to go into exile or to be able to be persuaded to leave. What do you make of that?
Well, I think Mr. Berlusconi has a track record. His political instincts are like his internationally with regard to Libya, are as flawed as his political instincts when it comes to his sexual life as head of the government. I really don't think that Berlusconi, in the eyes of many, and this is true increasingly even within Italy, but certainly in the international arena, there are other statements that he's made too. I really don't think he's a serious political analyst or strategist.
Right. But do you think that there would be, what would be your analysis of the actual stance, saying that the fact that such an unequivocal stance was taken against Gaddafi has now pushed him into a situation that makes a peaceful resolution less likely?
I think it's absurd. What's the basis for that? Gaddafi's made it clear, as has his son, who used to be considered a reformer, that they would fight until the end. Gaddafi has demonstrated that he is willing to slaughter his own people. So what is one supposed to do? Sit back and do nothing while he continues to slaughter? Is that going to guarantee that Gaddafi leaves? I think people are naive. I think Gaddafi's probably wondering, where would he go? This is where he wants to be. Is he supposed to join Ben Ali in Saudi Arabia?
Mr. Esposito, thank you so much for your time.
Great.